You're on record.
All right. The meeting of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills Planning Board for Monday, December 16, 2024 at 7:30 p.m. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given and that it is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Nora, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Barbario.
Here.
Mr. Didich.
Here.
Mr. DiPiero.
Here.
Councilman McGrath.
Here.
Mr. Shaw.
Here.
Chairman Dinsmore.
Here.
We have our board planner, Ms. Winter, our board engineer, Mr. Canjiano, and our board attorney, Ms. Steinley.
This meeting is open to the general public. Is there anyone here who wishes to address this board on matters that are not on our agenda tonight? Hearing and seeing none. We have a few resolutions to go through. We have application number 24:526, Murata Controls, and application 24-529, T-Mobile. We have the list of who's eligible.
Everyone has a copy.
Yep. Oh, very good.
And there were just a few minor edits to the Murata Controls resolution. One was,
Are you doing Pledge of Allegiance or?
oh, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh,
Good
absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was so pleased with myself for getting through everything so quickly.
That's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dickey. All right, now we're on the resolutions.
So just for the Murata Controls resolution, there were just a few minor edits. One, that the applicant is going to be installing 20 new EV charging stations, not 16, and that just to revise the language about installing a dry well or other stormwater infiltration measures. Doesn't specifically have to be dry well. And that was it.
All right, is there a motion to move the resolution with the changes suggested by the attorney?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Didich.
a motion to approve application number 24:526, Murata Controls, Inc., 20 Waterview Boulevard, Block 421, Lot 29.01. Preliminary and final major site plan with C variance to construct an addition to the existing loading zone.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Didich.
Yes.
DiPiero.
Yes.
McGrath.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. Next, we have T-Mobile, application number 24:529. Any changes to that?
No.
All right. Is there somebody willing to make a motion on that? Looks like the same crew.
Yep, I can make the motion. A motion to approve application number 24:529, T-Mobile, 1269 Route 46, Block 729, Lot 6.01, Zone O-3. Minor site plan with C variance to construct a temporary monopole with antennas and electric service.
Second.
All right.
Didich.
Yes.
DiPiero.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes. All right, so the resolutions are passed. That brings us to our agenda. And it looks like we got rid of the courtesy review.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so that brings us to application number 24:521, AR Parsippany Urban Renewal, 249 Pomeroy Road, Block 737, Lot 3. Preliminary and final major site plan with C variance to construct a warehouse with loading docks, trailer parking spaces, surface parking, and landscaping. Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, public. John Inglesino here from the law firm of Inglesino Taylor. We're representing the applicant, AR at Parsippany Urban Renewal, LLC. AR is an affiliate of Advanced Realty Investors, who I'll speak about a little bit more in a moment. The applicant is seeking preliminary and major site plan approval and major soil permit approval regarding property designated as Lot 3 in Block 737, also known as 249 Pomeroy Road, here in the township of Parsippany-Troy Hills. property is located in the SED 5A Specialized Economic Development Zone District and in the Block 737 Lot 3 redevelopment plan area. The project consists of the removal of the existing vacant single-story obsolete printing building. This building has been vacant for many years, and this project is the perfect repurpose for this vacant building site. Parsippany has been rather adroit, skillful in targeting the redevelopment of vacant, unused commercial zone properties over the past few years, and kudos to the Barbario administration for setting the standard for responsible municipal efforts to work with the private sector to eliminate properties which negatively impact township businesses and residents, and to convert those properties to uses which will provide strong ratables and quality local jobs for years to come. In that spirit, Advanced Realty is pleased to propose this state-of-the-art warehouse facility. Advanced Realty is a family-owned real estate development firm that was founded in New Jersey in 1979 by Peter Cocosiello Sr. Advance is truly one of New Jersey's most revered real estate company success stories. If you read their website, you'll note that Advance aims to be the premier developer of creative and real estate solutions, unlocking future value across the real estate sectors in all classes. And Advance recognizes that Parsippany is a significant transportation hub for North Jersey, which offers an unparalleled opportunity for transport and shipping logistics. Advance takes great pride in that it has worked with many New Jersey municipalities to redevelop properties and establish new uses to benefit those towns. And working in this industry, I could say that Advance is really a best-in-class premier New Jersey developer, and we're glad that they are here investing millions of dollars into Parsippany. Now, the warehouse building will be a little under 110,000 square feet, a little under 50 feet high. There's office space, loading docks, trailer spaces, drive-up ramps, trash compactor, surface parking spaces, EV-ready spaces, etc. There are additional site modifications and improvements that are proposed with respect to overall parking lot configuration, landscaping, lighting, and new stormwater management facilities. And you'll hear testimony that the subject property currently does not contain any stormwater management facilities, and this project will provide significant environmental benefits by providing stormwater management benefits. The driveway and the parking area improvements are also proposed, and the applicant is also proposing additional site improvements, including screening and extensive new landscaping. The applicant is requesting some submission waivers, which we should probably go through.
Absolutely.
One is the documentation from a qualified professional demonstrating that no wetlands exist. There are really no mapped wetlands on the subject property. It's fully developed. The second waiver is a waiver from the traffic study because the application does not result in a net increase of 25 or more peak hour trips in any given peak hour period. And the third is from the EIS because the applicant results in only a slight 0.14 acre increase in impervious coverage, and new extensive landscaping is proposed. Furthermore, the application is exempt from the Highlands regulations pursuant to exemption number 4 of the Act. The applicant also seeks a few deviations from the redevelopment plan. Those will be explained in testimony by our expert witnesses and then testified to by our planner. Now, as stated, the board planner issued a Highlands Act exemption determination pursuant to exemption number 4 of the Act on November 24th of 2024. So we have that. There are several review letters, which just want to make sure that the record is clear on those. We have the ARH Associates review letter of November 24, 2024. We have the GPI Engineering review letter of December 13, 2024. We have the Township Sewer Department memorandum dated December 9. We have the Morris County Planning Board approval dated August 7th. We have the Township Engineer report dated July 29th. We have the Township Environmental Engineer report dated October 4th. The Township Water Department memorandum dated October 4th. These are all 2024. Township Fire District memorandum dated July 22nd. And the Township Fire Code Township Fire Subcode official review letter of September 21st, and the last but not least, the Soil Conservation District review letter dated November 18th. Mr. Chairman, as always, we appreciate receiving reports in advance, and to be efficient, the applicant's witnesses will endeavor to include issues raised in those reports into their affirmative testimony. Each of our witnesses will, of course, be available to the board professionals, and the public to answer questions. We have 4 witnesses this evening. We have Brian Ames of Bowler Engineering, who will be offered as an expert for both the civil engineering and also the landscaping components of the project. John Korak will be the applicant's traffic engineer. Chuck Dietz is the project architect, and John McDonough will bat cleanup, and he'll be our planner. We also have 2 representatives of Advance Realty here with us this evening, Rob Caridad, who is the Director of Development for Advance Realty, and also here is Alex Ciccoziello, who is a principal in Advance and the proud son of the company's father, Peter Ciccoziello Sr. And so with that, Mr. Chairman,
I'm actually going to turn to our planner first, and she can walk us through the waivers, and we can go through that process.
perfect.
So I actually got a traffic study and an environmental assessment, so you don't need waivers from that. And I also have the wetlands as being addressed, so actually the only waiver I have was for the combined preliminary and final site plan, being submitted on separate sheets. We have no objection to that. We pretty much do that with every combined preliminary and final.
Do I have a motion to approve the waiver?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. DePiero.
Second.
Got a second, Mr. Shaw? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Counselor, the floor is yours.
Mr. Ames.
Thank you.
So if you please raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
My name is Brian Ennis, Bryanehnes. I work at Bowler, and our address is 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 207 in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ennis, I think I renamed you in my opening remarks. So would you please tell the board a little bit about your professional background, where you work, and any your educational experience, and any licenses that you possess?
Yep, I've been working at Bowler for about 14 years now. I've been a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey for about 10 years, and I worked on this project and have testified before many boards throughout New Jersey.
And you're going to be testifying as to civil engineering, and that's going to encompass the landscaping, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Any questions on the expert's qualifications? Hearing, seeing none. Counselor?
Okay, if you can please provide the civil engineering, landscaping aspects of the project. And how many exhibits do you have?
The 2 I show here, and I can mark them in now.
Why don't we just mark the exhibits
Yep.
now, and then you can, yes.
So the one on the left, I'll mark as A1. And that's an aerial exhibit prepared by Bowler Engineering, and it's dated December 10th of 2024. And then to the right, I will mark as Exhibit A2, and it's basically sheet C-301 that was included in the package submitted to the board, but for presentation purposes, it has been colorized, and the proposed landscaping was also dropped onto it, again, for presentation purposes. That is prepared by Bowler Engineering, and it is dated December 11th of 2024. And referencing again A1, which is the exhibit to the left, the aerial exhibit. North for reference is to the top of the page. As mentioned previously, the address is 249 Pomeroy Road. It's block 737, lot 3. The lot size is approximately 7.67 acres. And as mentioned previously, it's located in the SED-5A, Specialized Economic Development District, as well as the Lot 3 redevelopment area. We are proposing a warehouse here this evening, and that is a permitted use. And just to give you a little bit about the adjacent users, to the north and east, we have office and industrial uses similar to the one proposed this evening. To the west by Pomeroy Road and Route 287 beyond, and then to the south by additional office and industrial spaces. The existing site currently today has about 900 plus feet of frontage along Pomeroy Road. The right-of-way width currently is 50 feet. There is the option for 10 additional feet being added to be 60 feet overall. And we are coordinating with the township, one, if that's required, or two, if it's already been put into place. And I do want to set the table, though, that all the proposed improvements have been incorporated to assume that 10 feet would be taken. So any setbacks, area coverages, things along those measures would also be compliant if that widening were to either exist today or be put into place in the future. The proposed design, again, incorporates the right-of-way being widened, and the current use for the facility today is a vacant building at 91,736 square feet. The site is predominantly building and impervious areas with some grass areas along Pomeroy Road and the southern property line, and some limited landscaping throughout the property. There are 2 access drives that exist along Pomeroy Road today, and we will be proposing 2 in different locations, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that shortly. And as mentioned, also, the site does fall within the Highlands planning area, and we do qualify and have received an exemption under number 4. I think it was also mentioned previously, there are no wetlands, streams, or flood hazard areas on site. There was mention in some of the earlier reports and plans about open water that was across 287. The DEP mapping currently shows it as wetlands. We're about 280 feet or so away from that. And obviously with the resource value, we are separated from that jurisdictional area by 287 and Pomeroy Road. And the area on site has already been previously developed and disturbed. I'm going to now move a little bit more into the proposed conditions, and I'll reference the exhibit to the right, which again is A2, colorized sheet C-301, with landscaping superimposed onto that plan for presentation purposes. For reference as well, north is to the right of the page of this exhibit. And again, this is also the one I handed out 11 by 17s to the board. Just to kind of go through very high level what we're proposing here this evening, it's a 109,650 square foot warehouse, which is a permitted use. And again, we meet all building setback requirements with the property line where it is today and the potential for the additional 10 feet. The building is 1 story at 49.63 feet tall, which is under the maximum allowed of 50 feet. As mentioned previously too, there's no tenant currently, so some of the design aspects have been taken into account to provide flexibility for not only the circulation, but the operations of the facility. Throughout the site, we have grassed areas, full depth pavement, heavy duty asphalt, concrete, depending on where trucks will be driving compared to passenger vehicles. We also have across the entire 900-foot plus frontage of Pomeroy Road, we're proposing a 6-foot wide sidewalk across the entire frontage. Currently, there are no sidewalks on either of the adjacent properties, but we are proposing that as part of this development here this evening. There's also ADA access to both the north and the south sides of the building. This, again, is to provide flexibility for a future tenant. And because of this proposed condition, one of the variances being requested today is a 7.3-foot wall at the highest point in a side yard where only 6 feet is allowed. And just to kind of walk the board through what that condition is, along the south and across Pomeroy, from going from north to south, there's about a 10-foot grade change along the frontage of our building and between the two driveways. So essentially, we're looking to make both access points, both to the north and the south of the building, ADA accessible from not only the right-of-way, but from parking spaces. So because of that and the way the building is set in terms of the grading, there is some type of wall ramp system to make up that grade difference to get any visitors or employees of the facility into either the northern entrance or the southern entrance of the building. And again, it's not designed as if it's a wall making up grading near the property line. It's going to look basically a part of the building and kind of blend into the entrance and the building itself. In addition, the proposed building complies with building coverage. We're at 32.8%, where 40% is allowed, and the impervious coverage is also met. We are proposing 61.9%, where 90% is actually allowed, and we're only increasing about 1.4% from the 60.5 currently. Access and circulation, so there is a driveway to the north and the south of the building. Both driveways are full movement, and they will be entrance and exits for both passenger vehicles and trucks entering and exiting the facility. We are requesting another variance in terms of driveway width. The maximum is 24 feet. We are proposing 30. And again, it's to combine some of the circulation, give more maneuverability for passenger vehicles and trucks in this area to circulate the site safely. So you can enter to the north, circulate around the east of the building to the south, or vice versa. In terms of parking overall, we are proposing 53 parking spaces where 44 are required. The breakdown of the parking is 46 standard spaces at 9 by 18, 5 ADA, which again is over the actual limit for the total number of parking, but is because we want to provide ADA access to both the north and the south, as I mentioned previously. And we do have 2 EV stalls near the northern entrance driveway north of the building. In terms of loading, there are 20 loading doors located at the rear or eastern part of the site and building. These also have bookended by 2 drive-in ramps, and this meets the required number of loading docks for this size building. The loading docks are the typical 4-foot recessed docks, and the drive-up ramps are typically for smaller vehicles. The loading docks are 13.5 feet by 60 feet, and the drive-in ramps are 19 feet in width by 60 feet in length. There are also, on the other side of the truck court, further east of the building, there are 20 trailer parking spaces where a maximum of 46 are allowed. That size is 12 by 50 feet. The site is designed for WB 67 circulation, and again, both driveways and the circulation throughout the property is for passenger vehicles as well as trucks. In terms of trash and recycling, it will be handled at one of the loading doors with some type of compactor recycling bin as needed, or internally, and the tenant will kind of drive that, but it will be a private hauler, and we don't see a need for a trash enclosure for this property. There is some relief needed in terms of steep slope disturbance as well, and I'm going to quickly just go through those numbers just for everyone's benefit. 86.2 disturbance of existing slopes from 15% to 20, where 35% is allowable. The actual area is only about 3,400 square feet. 80% disturbance of existing slopes between 20 and 25%, where 25% is allowed. This is only an area of about 1,300 square feet. And then 89.7% disturbance of existing slopes from 25% and greater, where the proposed is, or the allowed is 5%. That's about 5,700 square feet. The total is about 10,400 square feet, which is a little over 3% of the entire site. And I will say that typically steep slopes are meant to keep natural areas as they currently are. And these are all areas that were previously disturbed, either graded to tie into property lines or some areas right adjacent to the building. So in terms of the steep slope disturbance we typically try and avoid, this is more just previously developed area that we're regrading as part of this overall development. In terms of stormwater, we are proposing inlets, manholes, conveyance piping, and a basin at the rear or the southern easternmost corner of the property. It was mentioned in GPI's report, and we have had some conversations about some of the drainage comments. We have no issue meeting with GPI, walking through what our approach was, and based on some of the conversations we've had so far, we feel that even if we do need to update our plan to satisfy the GPI comment, we are able to do so with minimal impact to the way the site is currently designed today. All improvements will comply with DEP requirements for quantity, quality, recharge, and green infrastructure. We do have a 4-foot-high split rail fence around the basin, as well as a guide rail at the easternmost part of the loading and the trailer spaces, just to ensure that there is some protection from the trucks backing into the trailer storage areas. I kind of mentioned earlier the existing impervious is 60.5. We're going up to 61.9, only a 1.4% increase. But we are reducing motor vehicle coverage in terms of the building is larger, which enhances the water quality for the site compared to what it is currently today. In terms of remediation, one of the comments was also brought up. We have received response action outcomes for remediation being completed in both July and December of 2022. I believe copies were provided, but if not, we can certainly provide those copies as well. Utilities are available to the site. We are connecting new connections into Pomeroy Road's right-of-way. They are available. I think we've already received sanitary approval, and we'll certainly go through the approval process for each utility. For signage, currently we're only showing one freestanding and one building sign. Both signs comply with all requirements for setbacks, area, sizes, things along those natures, so they are fully compliant signs. And again, we will provide details of those when a tenant does come in with specific signage, but in front of you today is a package that is compliant with the code. To hit landscaping and lighting, again, I think we do have a pretty nice landscaping plan before you this evening compared to certainly what's out there today. The existing asphalt impervious area to the north of the existing building is being replaced by a grass area and kind of compacting a little bit more of the development. So pretty similar in terms of overall area, but a little bit more compact and not spread throughout the whole property. There are a number of plantings throughout the site, the basin, the frontage of Pomeroy Road, and just some of those numbers, there's 91 total trees consisting of canopy trees, evergreens, and ornamentals. There's over 550 shrubs, and then numerous grasses, ground covers, and perennials throughout the development. The landscaping is designed to meet all township requirements, and again, to hopefully provide a more enhanced landscaping development from current conditions to what we'll have as the proposed improvements. For lighting, we have 12 single-mounted lights, LED fixtures mounted at 25 feet. Wall-mounted lights are also spread throughout the building itself as well. There was mention of some of the light levels along the property lines. Nothing is not in compliance with township regulations, but we do have 0.7 at the highest for the eastern property line, and that property line is shared with a similar use. We already have house side shields for the lighting, and also those lighting foot candle readings do not take into account the boundary vegetation that exists today, as well as all the landscaping and evergreen trees we'll be planting around the boundary of the property. To the south, there is a 0.3 max, with the majority of it less than that as well. And again, house side shields are already provided, and this does not include all the vegetation on the boundary and the property lines, as well as the proposed landscaping that we have before you today. And again, just the deviations were the wall 7.3 feet in height, where 6 feet is allowed. The driveway width of 30 feet, where 24 feet in width is allowed. And then the steep slopes disturbance that I mentioned previously. And I think it was mentioned earlier, but just a quick highlight, we have SCD certification, we have county approval, we have the Highlands exemption, I believe we have sewer approval now, and the soil moving application was also submitted as part of the most recent submission to the board. And any comment I didn't hit directly for letters including GPIs, we certainly can work to comply with, should the board vote favorably tonight during resolution compliance.
One more question, if I might. Now, you indicated that the existing impervious coverage is 60.5%, is that correct?
Correct.
And the proposed impervious coverage is 61.9%?
Correct,
And what is the permitted impervious coverage on the site?
90%.
Okay, so we're well under.
Correct.
What would be permitted from an impervious coverage perspective.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Canjiano, do you have,
Thank you for the testimony. You hit a lot of our points or questions in your initial testimony. I did get a copy, but I haven't seen this wetlands. Are there any wetlands or wetland transitions on the property?
No, not mapped on DEP mapping currently.
But what about like in the ditch, not the DEP mapping, but your own assessment?
No.
All right, I'll ask that you add that to your plan, your professional, and have that be on the record that there was no wetlands, because that ditch looked a little suspect. That remediation is interesting. So just for the board, what kind of remediation was done on site? And more importantly, does the demo of the building or the excavation needed for the basin or the foundations, will that trigger any need for additional remediation? So just if you could talk about that.
High level, we don't anticipate that. We certainly will be following all the regulations, both as the remediation plan earlier, as well as DEP requirements. So we don't anticipate that, but we'll certainly have those policies and regulations in motion as the work is being completed.
I guess, was it contaminated soil? Was it something in the building? What do we have?
I believe it was previous contamination from the user that was there previously. So some of the things that were being done that wound up going into the ground, but that has since been remediated. And we can certainly provide additional information from the entity that did the testing and provide a little bit more information.
Well, it's just a matter of if there's a significant amount of it, and I know trucking regulated material is very expensive.
Mhm.
And I just want to let the applicant be aware, if you encounter it and for some reason you're not going to be trucking it off, it must meet all the parameters of leaving it on site.
Yep.
And if you're going to be changing your grading in any way, that may be a subject for modified site plans.
Yes, understood. Yep.
Okay, just want to get that on the record there. That's good news. You got your Highlands exemption. If you haven't forwarded to our office, please do.
Yep.
And I go back to your statement on the 300-foot Highlands buffer. I don't disagree with your assessment from GeoWeb. However, it's more or less a statement of fact. It is part of the redevelopment plan. It does ask that you identify the 300-foot Highlands buffer on your documents. So please add it to the survey or the plan documents.
Yep, that's not a problem. We can certainly do that.
For the redevelopment plan. With more or less the housekeeping stuff. Thank you for your testimony on the ramp and wall. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a question for engineering or the architect, but again, that's a large wall along that face. The rest of the building face has an architectural treatment. I wasn't clear from the plans if this wall will have a similar architectural treatment, but that would make sense. So I'll leave it.
Yep.
Who wants to answer that one?
Yeah, the architect can answer that.
Okay, what else did I have here? A major note. And then you mentioned stormwater. We had our initial letter. Now, just to be clear, this plan on here is based on the site plan submission from November 2024. And that's the...
Yeah, the actual date of the plan that's from is, I have it right here, it's revision 3, and it's from November 26th of 2024.
November 26th, okay, because this one that was submitted to the board for the board's use is the original June package. So
Okay, yes.
That's
This is revised
this
since
is
then.
superseded. And our stormwater notes, I know you've made some efforts and done, address several of our stormwater comments from our original September 5th letter based on your original June plans. It addressed some of the items, but not all of them. Well, I'll ask, just for simplicity, that you'll agree to meet the comments in our original September 5th letter, which you've done many of them already, but I didn't bother re-enumerating them in our December letter.
Yep, understood. Yeah, and we can certainly meet with
That's
you, I
clear.
think it was
So,
mentioned in there.
the stormwater comments from our September 5th letter were still hold. That's just so as a condition, and I realize you've addressed some of them
Yes.
in your revision. You touched on the lighting questions. That's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Winter, you had a comment or two?
Yeah, just in regard to the variance required for the wall.
Mhm.
In writing the redevelopment plan, there had anticipated because of the grade change that would need some relief. So it allows for 8 feet in the rear yard. The design ultimately ended up in the side yard, but I think the intention remains the same.
Thank you.
All right, any members of the board have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bring up Mr. Corrick.
I'm supposed to ask the public.
Oh,
Has any
public.
questions of this witness in this time? Any members of the public have any questions? Hearing and seeing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mr. John Corrick, who is the traffic engineer for the project.
Good evening.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
It's John Korak, last name spelled C-O-R-A-K, with Stonefield Engineering and Design, 92 Park Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey.
And Mr. Corrick, if you can provide the board with a little bit of your educational and professional background and list any licenses that you possess.
Of course, I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I'm a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the College of New Jersey. I'm an expert in the field of traffic and transportation engineering. I've testified before over 100 boards within the state, including Parsippany Zoning Board. Pleasure to be here this evening.
Your license is in good standing?
Current and in good standing.
Mr. Chairman?
Any questions by members of the board on the expertise of our witness? Qualifications? No? Hearing and seeing none? sir.
Thank you. Mr. Corrick, if you can please outline the relevant traffic aspects of this application for the board.
Of course. So our office prepared a traffic and parking assessment report, originally dated June 27th, 2024, and revised October 28th, 2024. As Mr. Ennis discussed before, the 109,650 square foot warehouse along Pomeroy Road. Pomeroy Road, basically running parallel with Route 287, and generally serves other commercial type entities, whether it's offices, manufacturing areas, and connects out to a handful of other streets, including Webro Road, Wood Hollow Road, Smith Road, and the like, in order to get to the greater roadway network, the state highways in the area, the interstates, and such. For a warehouse of this size, we don't have an end tenant yet, but we can generally forecast what we'd expect from a traffic generation perspective. We do so utilizing the trip generation manual published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. This is the industry standard for forecasting traffic from various types of developments. It's used by traffic engineers throughout the country, the DOT, pretty much anyone forecasting traffic for land development applications. For morning and evening peak hours, that's what we hone into, the singular peak hour. It's between 37 and 40 expected trips total going to or from the site over the course of an hour. So less than one trip a minute. And during those morning and evening peak hours, that's almost entirely car traffic. Really, the truck traffic associating the warehouse use takes place throughout the day when the volumes on the surrounding roadways are a bit less outside of the commuting peaks. You may see one or two trucks during those commuting peak hours, but by and large, the truck traffic associated with a project like this is generally spread throughout the day and is not focused by any means within those peak hours. For reference, for the board's reference, a daily truck value for a warehouse this size, we would expect about 33 trucks. So 33 movements in, 33 movements out, spread across the full daily operations of a warehouse of this size. So a fairly negligible impact in terms of, truck volume, circulation, and all of the routings, whether it's the 287 north and south, 80 east or west, get all the way out to 208, or even state highways or U.S. highways in the area. All those can be accomplished in commercial areas, not impacting residential developments. And so when we think of warehousing truck traffic, we want to make sure that our impacts are not, affecting the neighbors, the residents, and we have a location here that's poised to do so. Onto the site design itself, we have the 2 access points which serve both passenger vehicle and truck traffic. The exit maneuvers for each driveway have larger radii to accommodate that right turn swing of a truck movement. So that's a 60-foot radius, which is a bit larger than typical, but appropriate here for the truck movement. Basically, everyone's going to be making a left in, and everyone's going to be making a right out, because Pomeroy dead ends a couple developments to the south of the site itself. Parking and loading, we have the 30 spaces on the north side, or plan right, the 23 spaces on the south side, plan left, 20 docks in the rear, the 20 trailer spaces, and on the east side, or plan bottom of the page. And that parking amount, that loading dock amount, obviously it's something that gets right-sized to, a tenant, if you will, right? Tenants lease up spaces that can accommodate their needs. But again, looking at some of the ITE information out there, our parking supply would exceed the ITE's weighted average for a size of the site. Not excessively, but just enough to give us a little bit of comfort, a little bit of cushion, depending on who the end operator ultimately is for this site. Last thing to touch on, dimensionally, just the circulation of the site, 30-foot wide aisles as you work from Pomeroy to the back of the site, which then widen out to a 70-foot truck aisle, allowing for those turning maneuvers and the truck swings backing into the loading dock and the parking spaces. All of those are in accordance with industry standards, work well for truck traffic, and really the site's been designed to accommodate the proposed use. We're not cramming things in too tight, not building a building too large and then sacrificing on the drive aisles of the parking or anything like that. And so, with that, all those pieces considered, the off-site traffic, the on-site circulation, design, parking, this is the project that we don't see having any kind of adverse impact on the surrounding roadway network, and I think fits into this property and this development well from a traffic, parking, circulation perspective. That concludes my direct at this time.
Well, let me just ask you another question or two. So, in your opinion, ingress and egress to the site and out of the site can be accomplished in a safe and efficient manner?
Yes, definitely.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Canjiano, do you have some?
Well, I reviewed the traffic report, the trip generation, the parking generation. No comments. Just generally speaking, with the 2 driveways, full movement driveways, with trucks available to go on both driveways, is there an advantage to trucks using one driveway or the other, like coming in from the southerly driveway and maneuvering into the parking stall or the truck bays from the southerly approach, or what's your opinion?
Yeah, so what I see occurring here, and I think the benefit of the 2 access points, is that if you have a truck coming in and has an open loading dock spot, they're likely to take the southerly driveway, the one on the left side of the page, because when they do their backing maneuvers, they have their left mirror right outside of their cab, and they're able to see better the maneuvers and the movements that they're making into the loading dock. Because we have the trailer parking on the opposite side, say there's a situation where truck's coming in at the trailer, the dock's not available for whatever reason, but they do have the trailer parking spot open. You come in that first driveway, and you again have that same advantage of being able to see out of your driver's side window mirror and make that maneuver. It's a preferred maneuver for truckers to do, is that kind of backing maneuver, as opposed to looking out the passenger side window, which is just a little bit more difficult, takes a little more skill and finesse to make that movement. So I think the 2 driveways here works well and serves the circulation with the trailer parking and the docks on opposite sides of our main aisle in the truck area.
Thank you.
Do you have any,
I don't have any questions.
are there members of the board who have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none, are there members of the public who have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Batting in the third position is Mr. Chuck Dietz. Mr. Dietz has handouts. How many exhibits will you have, Mr. Dietz?
2.
So those will be A3 and A4.
There's enough for everybody, so if you take one and pass it down. We can do the same for this. A3 and A4?
Yes.
Three will be a three-dimensional architectural color rendering perspective. Four will be proposed roof plan to respond to the board's professional comments in reviewing our that's what it should mean, that's all.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Charles P. Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z, 90 East Halsey Road, Parsippany, 07054.
Mr. Chairman, I presume that Mr. Dietz is a man who needs no further introduction to the board, but I would ask if his license as an architect in the state of New Jersey is still valid.
It is and has been for the past 38 years.
Are there any
offer Mr.
questions
Dietz.
by members of the board on the qualifications of this expert witness?
Thank you.
Hearing and seeing
Thank you, Mr.
none.
Dietz. Would you please provide the architectural components of the project for the board?
Yes, I like to keep my testimony short when we're allowed to bring a pretty picture for the board to see, both the materials, the colors, the style, and the architecture we're proposing for this warehouse building on Pomeroy Road, which will be a neighbor to my office on 90 East Halsey Road. So obviously we want something beautiful, as we always do for the Township of Parsippany. It will be a reinforced bearing wall precast panel structure. It will be supported internally by steel columns, steel joists, steel beams, steel girders. It'll be a fully non-combustible building, fully sprinklered, and will meet all the current codes, both in energy and building department and fire regulations for a building of this use, size, height, and square footage. What we're proposing, we have approximately 510 linear feet of wall, which you see in the rendering, paralleling Pomeroy Road and Route 287 North. And what we like to do is not to have big blank walls that don't have windows. And unfortunately, with warehouses, you don't have a lot of windows. We are currently proposing the office area and the windows to only be on the north side of the project, which you can see in the foreground with that tower element. But we've taken that corner tower element with the glass, and we've equally distributed a similar bump-up feature of a couple feet periodically down that 510 feet, therefore to break up the monotony of a large, just under 50-foot tall wall. We also achieved this architectural style by the use of multiple colors, horizontal and vertical scoring along the precast, and then we like to have some projections, which you can see at the 10-foot storefront elevation is a protective canopy, which will provide shade at the window area and decorative in nature for the other bump ups. And then again, because this building is almost 50 feet tall, We have a midline canopy projection, which you see in white, halfway up each of those towers, that will project out a couple feet, cast a shadow, and again, it's an architectural treatment that provides some relief in a very long, very tall wall. We like to use earth tone colors, and in this project, we're proposing earth tone grays, both in a light gray, which is the main body, which you see at the lower level, approximately 20 feet high. Then we have a nice lighter, not a full pure white, but an off-white color, which will be at the midpoint. And then we cap the top off at our parapet again with that medium gray across the tops of the building. And then the architectural features that you see periodically across the front and at the corner will be the darker gray accent color. That'll be predominant to really just define and anchor the building to the ground. Within that tower element, again, to break it up further, we're proposing 6-inch horizontal scoring in the precast that you can see if you look closely, both a single vertical line that splits it in half, and then every 6 to 8 inches will be horizontal scoring. These joints are 3 inches thick, so they look small to scale, but if you actually came up to look at all these score lines, they are 1.5 inches deep and they're 3 inches wide. So they actually are substantial. We've done a lot of buildings like this in Parsippany, in East Hanover, in the surrounding Morris County area, and they're very effective in basically complementing and creating this softer look. Again, we only have the rendering that shows the north and part of the westerly wall, but all the facades, all 4 sides, will have this same type of treatment. We won't have the tower bump ups, but we will have that architectural scoring continuing around the building, parapet continuously all across the building, and all the scoring. One of the board members' questions or professionals' question was, will there be rooftop equipment? A building like this will not be a heated, cooled warehouse, but because it is sprinkled, we do have to provide minimum heat to keep the building at a standard 45 to 50 degrees so that the sprinkler system does not freeze. And these are usually provided both by interior gas-fired heaters that will be placed throughout the building, as well as a lower mechanical unit that will sit on the roof. That's called a, no, I lost my thought, what they're called. But actually, they just supply heat in there and maintain a constant temperature on a thermostat. And then the only other thing by code we have to supply is natural fresh air. So there'll be some other small units located on the roof that are the fresh air units, and they will just bring fresh air in. That'll be heated, but it'll not be a conditioned warehouse per se. And if I can just flip this around, Exhibit A4 will show you that proposed roof plan. because this
Mr.
was-
Dietz, Mr. Dietz?
Yes, sir.
Can you just bring the microphone? It'll be good.
Sheet A4 was not included in the original package. So as you can see, we have a large column bay, which works out well for the racking that will be done by the tenant. But basically, right down the center line of the building is where we're proposing these heating units and exhaust units that will supply both fresh air and minimal heat for the building. We are sloping the roof to the rear towards the loading docks, where we will have scuppers and downspouts, which means that they'll be hidden. You won't see them. You'll see the downspout. Nimble as I used to be. They will tie into the stormwater management system that the civil engineer has already discussed with you. He has our locations, and he will make sure that he picks up those lines when they come off our roof, down the building, and get picked up underground. There we go. So as you can see, there's a series of vertical downspouts and scuppers that are placed between the doors. But again, you can see we continue that same scoring, multiple colored features, even with the overhead doors that you see. We provide a minimum set of egress doors and standard stairs and doors for the truckers to be able to pull up to the dock doors, ring the bell, get inside the building, let them open up the doors, and they provide their unloading of their trucks. The one drive-up door that we talked about, there's one on the right side, there's one on the left side. So I think it works very well. We also like to try to bring some natural light in the warehouse area. You can see on this drawing, there's a series, every column bay. We're proposing at least one window that will let natural light in up at probably the 30-foot mark. So it's there just to let natural light flow throughout the warehouse in between the column bays. So it's a nice feature. It tends to go well. The workers like it. At least they can kind of get some light when the sun's shining. So it's a pretty straightforward warehouse. We do probably 10 or 12 of these a year, and we've been doing this for the past 5 years. So I feel like we've become pretty prolific in designing these, laying these out efficiently, working with the civil engineer on how they lay out on the site, and then how they operate internally for future tenants.
Thank you, Mr. Deeks. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Just in regards to tenants, we thinking one, is it possible to have more than one in this
Right
building?
now, yeah, right now, the developer has done their research, and they feel this size building and the area that we're proposing it in Parsippany, that they can find a single user tenant. If push came to shove, this building could be divided into two, but most likely, they feel very confident they're gonna be able to lease this to a single tenant.
Thank you.
Mr. Canjiano, do you have any?
Yeah, just based on my earlier question before about that 7-foot ramp, it tapers down to 0, but that ramp, what are your thoughts on, is that a concrete wall, like concrete finish, or what would be your thoughts for making that
Yes.
wall blend with your building?
Because it's a larger than standard ramp, just because of the grading on the site, it will be a concrete poured ramp that we will paint the medium gray color. Obviously, it actually has to meet code for safety, because we're above the 30 inches. So it'll actually have a guardrail and a handrail at the top, which will probably be aluminum, pre-finished aluminum and color black. But the wall surface, instead of just being a foundation wall, we could certainly propose that light medium gray that is prevalent throughout the building. So it'll blend in kind of really with the rest of the building if you didn't look at the guardrail.
Just so the civil engineer from Bowler, have those notes on your plan as well, because your plan is probably the basis that the structural engineer will.
Yeah, we'll design that as part of our construction drawings, so all those notes and colors will be on both my architectural and structural drawings versus the civil.
And to be clear on what the actual deviation we're asking for, it's an 8-foot wall plus the 3 feet of guardrail on top?
The guardrail will actually be 42 inches high.
42.
The handrail is only 36. Our guardrail actually will be 42. So it'll be a split handrail at the 36, and then it'll extend the extra 6 inches
So
to
at
get
the
you 42.
highest point, you're almost 12 feet?
6-7 feet plus 42 inches. But this first 6-7 feet is concrete. The rest is an open guardrail system that'll be, just 1 inch thick.
Okay.
Pedestals.
All right, members of the board have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Members of the public have any questions on this testimony at this time? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. John McDonough.
Planner wants the picture.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Sure. Hi there, everyone. Happy holidays. My name is John McDonough, MC, capital DONOUGH. Business address 101 Gibraltar Drive, Parsippany, New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know Mr. McDonough is also not new to the board. Mr. McDonough, your license as a professional planner is still intact?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman, I'd request that you accept Mr. McDonough as a professional planner.
Does the board have any questions on the qualifications of Mr. McDonough to be the professional planner here? Hearing.
I do have a question. What year did you graduate from Parsippany Hills?
1984.
All right, Roy.
Youngster. youngster. All right, Mr. McDonough, there's some variances or deviations here, correct?
Yes.
Would you please describe those deviations and articulate for the board why they meet the proofs under the municipal land use law and should be approved and accepted by the board as part of this application?
Sure. I will be relatively brief. The relief that the applicant is seeking is really brief here as well. The list of conformance is very long and will echo the laudable purposes of your redevelopment plan and the goals and objectives of what you're looking to achieve here. The applicant has followed it almost to a T. There's some minor deviations which we'll hit. I'd like to give you some exhibits. They're just going to let the site do the talking for itself. We're going to let Mr. Dietz's rendering there do the rest of the talking, so you get a sense of the before and the after. These are just 2 sheets on a very foggy day, and I do swear I didn't wait till the dreariest day of the year to take these shots.
So these 2 sheets will be both together A5?
Yes.
And what are they going to be entitled?
It's a view of the site from the air.
Oh, so you've got the drone out there.
That's exactly what the Staples
your
guy
fault.
said.
It's your fault. You're one of the drones.
No, we're in at night. We're here at
Oh,
night.
yeah, okay.
Basically a view looking northbound and southbound on 287. This is a site right against 287, slightly above 9 acres. And I think the main points that I want to show here, even though it's not a clear photograph, it's an industrialized area, it's an industrial site. I'll let your own redevelopment plan talk about the problems with the site. Unproductive, underutilized, antiquated, obsolete. Long story short, this is a site and a building that has outlived its useful life. The essence of redevelopment, as we know, is to reverse stagnation, and we have an applicant here that is ready, willing, and able to reinvest in this property and bring it up to contemporary standards. So right off the bat, we're looking at a positive repurposing of the site from a physical planning standpoint. In terms of the relief that's actually being sought here, this site is governed by the Block 737 Lot 3 redevelopment plan, which was recently adopted by the board and your governing body. Again, the laudable purpose here are to take vacant and stagnant properties, revitalize them, and bring them back to productive use. We always look at the application as a whole when we consider the relief that the applicant is seeking, and we remind the board that, as I said at the outset, this application substantially complies with the higher tiers of zoning in your redevelopment plan. The use complies, the height complies, the building coverage and lot coverage comply, the setbacks on all sides comply, and the parking complies as well. So our applicant has hit the mark in terms of all of those higher tiers. The relief that the applicant is seeking is threefold. They're all rational in terms of the testimony you've just heard. The wall height at 7.3 feet, where 6 is the maximum allowed. Brian touched upon that at the outset of his testimony, is due to the sloping grade that we're dealing with. So again, in the interest of avoiding tiered walls, we're looking for that 1.3 height relief. Likewise, we've got the driveway width, which again, Brian gave the predicate there. 30 feet being the proposal, 24 feet being the maximum that's allowed, all in the interest of safe circulation for the vehicles that'll navigate the site. And then lastly, Brian talked about the 3 categories of slope relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on. I can run through the numbers if you need them, but again, I think the core point there, as Brian said, 3% of the site consists of steep slopes that are being disturbed. The rest of the site, 97%, is undisturbed, unconstrained slopes in accordance with your ordinance. So again, minimal relief. We turn back to the balancing test here where the benefits of the application as a whole would substantially outweigh the detriments. In terms of purposes of the land use law that are advanced, we see purpose A, the promotion of the general welfare by reversing stagnation and revitalizing a site, eliminating blight, and pulling in, again, what has been recognized as a critical link in the logistics supply system or supply chain. We know that we've moved from a world where you would go out to the world to get the things you need. Now the world comes to you. And clearly this has gained currency in the last 5 years, as Chuck has said through his testimony. Additionally, we know that Not too long ago, during COVID, essential workers were exempt from stay-at-home workers. That included our medical profession, our educators and the like. Also, warehouse workers were part of that group as well, to get medicines and important critical infrastructure out to the public. Additionally, advancement of Purpose G, the promotion of a variety of uses in the appropriate locations. It's an industrial area. This is an industrial use along a major transportation network. Additionally, Purpose I, the promotion of a desirable visual environment. Will let the building speak for itself, a first-class building that is going to add to the aesthetic and value and quality to the area. And then finally, Purpose M, our planning goal for efficient use of land, redevelopment as efficient as it gets, except for perhaps adaptive reuse. Here, we're replacing an older building with a brand-new building, which we think goes towards that goal as well. On the negative side, based on all of the testimony, the relief for the wall height, the driveway width, and the slope disturbance are minimal and will have minimal, if any, impacts. Based on that, I think it's a good application. It hits the mark for the criteria for relief, and approval is warranted.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Winter, do you have any questions or comments?
No, Mr. McDonough hit the pertinent points there.
Okay. The members of the board who have any questions or comments? Mr. Tadich?
Quick question, and I apologize if I missed it, but I'm not seeing any office space inside the warehouse. Should there be, or?
There is,
Is that
it's on the architectural plan. I believe it's about 3,700 square feet of office space.
3,740. 3,740. So, very small component.
All right, top right corner, that's the one? Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions by members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, are there any members of the public who have any questions on this testimony? Hearing and seeing none. Counselor?
Mr. Chairman, as much as I know the board would love to hear a long dissertation and closing statement from me, I will defer to the record freshly in the minds of the board and conclude the application and respectfully request a vote in the affirmative.
Are there any members of the public who have any comments, questions, or opposition to this case at this time? Hearing and seeing none. This closes the evidentiary portion of tonight's hearing. Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, a motion to approve application number 24:521 AR at Parsippany Urban Renewal LLC, 249 Palmer Road, Block 737, Lot 3, preliminary and final major site plan with C variance to construct a warehouse with loading docks, trailer parking spaces, surface parking, and landscaping.
Subject to conditions as outlined by our attorney.
Yes, it was agreed that the applicant would comply with the board engineer reports and the other township department reports and recommendations. That the applicant would get approvals for each utility connection, will provide details of the signage when tenants are selected, will comply with NJDEP requirements for the property, with the township code, will comply with the township code regarding lighting, will work with the board professionals and township departments to comply with their reports. And then there were several additions to the plans, including the wetland transition, the 300-foot highlands buffer, and there's another one. And the details of the retaining wall, added to the structural plans and civil plans, I believe. That's all I had.
All right, so those are the conditions. I assume your motion included those conditions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, which includes also a September 5th letter from the board engineer in addition to the December 13th letter. So we will comply with that September 5th letter as well.
All right, makes sense. Do I have a second?
Second?
Nora, would you call the roll, please?
Barbario.
Yes.
Didich.
Yes.
DePiero.
Yes.
McGrath.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Dinsmore.
Yes.
Thank you all very, very much. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to all of you and your families.
Indeed. Now, before we adjourn, as chairman this year, I enjoyed every one of you. I thought you all did a great job of trying to make Parsippany a better place as best we can. I thought all of our professionals did an excellent job this year. And I would love to thank I think we all owe a big thank you to Nora Jolie for the hard work that she did this year. So Nora, thank you very much,
Thank you.
and have a wonderful Christmas and a fantastic holiday period for those of you who prefer that. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So, motion.
Anybody opposed? I guess we're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.